Hi folks, welcome back to the Hoard. Welcome to the day before spring. Let me show you what I'm up to. I like bikes or all-terrain vehicles, or quads, or that kind of stuff that kind of come with a bit of a background story. I like the story almost as much as the bikes. And what I have here, this is the Great North Woods Hillbilly three-wheeler. No, I didn't crash it into the back of my truck. I'm working on it, so I had to tilt it up. Okay, so what it is a 1985 Honda 250 ES, big red. And you can see the 1985 there, I hope. And this thing has an interesting story. It actually is from Arkansas. And it's kind of hard to read, but with some decoding, you can read that it's from Arkansas. You can see that it actually has an inspection sticker from 1994 on it. And this was bought at an auction. Let me try to show you guys for real. So I think that's pretty cool. This bike was ridden by adults, and the way you could typically see that is, see the way the foot peg is not all bent to hell. See the way the brakes not all bent to hell. The shifter, the other foot peg. And these bikes are actually hard to get, where they still have some kind of front suspension on them. So this was owned by and ridden by adults for its life. I mean, it still has the headlight intact. The front fender isn't all hacked up. One fender is broken on this side. Easy enough to do, you just have to catch up with the tree. But the other side is all good. So the gas tanks not all dented up, especially right here where people like to run them into. The forks, the handlebars aren't bent. So all good things. Anyway, I bought this bike with the realization that it would probably need an engine change, and it came with the parts, the 1996 parts bike with a good engine. And yesterday I opened up that engine and I showed you that it was a real nice engine. Today I opened up this guy to see what kind of trouble I'm in, and I spoke to my buddy the Hillbilly yesterday to get a little bit more information, like that background I just gave you and what else is wrong with it. So he indicated that the drain plug is stripped out here. Obviously that doesn't thrill anybody, but it's not cracked. It's not broken, and actually there's quite a bit of space around here, so I could probably get a little bigger drain plug, re-drill, tap, and fix that. So you guys know I don't like bikes that leak oil, so I could get around that. Secondly, given that this is an 85, I can't quite see the manufacture date, or a 85, right? I can't quite see the manufacture date, but I'm thinking it's an early one. And the reason why is, once again, instead of having a single plug that goes in here, it's got the really big pulse generator, and it's got those connections in the oil. So that makes it much older. It's also, if you remember yesterday's, the stator coils did not have all this insulator on them, and the ignition coils, these two, just kind of had a tape wrapped around them. So there's that difference. This also, I was using the word Mitsubishi. It's not Mitsubishi, it's ND. I don't know if you guys could see it right there. It says ND. So this is the oldest ignition, the older ignition. And once again, I've had this problem before where I said, oh, you know, I'm not thrilled that my flywheel's hacked up, but no big deal. I'll just buy a new coil. And I bought the new coil and I put it together, and the coil was too tight and it kind of forced in there and locked things up on me. So once again, Densai flywheel, Densai coil, ND flywheel, ND coil. If you swap them around, you're going to get into trouble. I don't know how well you guys could see this either. You see the damage there? Some damage here. Right? And if you look down at this, hopefully the sunlight doesn't mess around with us too much. Maybe if I come in from this angle, you could see that it's damaged right in there. And you could see how deep the gouges go. And from there you realize just a little deeper, and you start taking out the coils. So this is an example of an engine that I mean, given I've taken it apart and I've cleaned the metal out of it and all that, and I'm going to flush it, hopefully, and you know, I'll probably fish around down here with one of those metal things on a rod that you use to find sockets and so forth and screws. So I'll do my best to get as much of the metal out of there and flush it out, and once again wand it, so to speak, magnetically wand it and get all that metal out of there. And hopefully what I'd like to do is bring this engine back. Actually, I'd like to bring this bike back more or less in the condition it's in. It's going to be a bit of a rat, but such is life. The story I'm told from an ignition point of view, this thing worked. I just have to put the coil back in here and sort out the key switch. Perhaps take the key switch off the TRX 250, and that'll get me a key switch. From a starter point of view, see these gears sticking up. I already purchased this and this, but unfortunately there are two things missing from the set I purchased. This goes like this, right? And you guys could see how I took it off. But there's supposed to be a little metal spacer here which keeps those grooves from chewing this up. That's the first thing that's missing. And the second thing that's missing, and it makes sense that it's actually missing, is that there's a gear, a double gear here, small one that drives this and a bigger one on the outside, such that when the starter, right, goes in this way, and the gear sticks out, it drives it, which eventually drives the teeth down here. The one-way clutch is good, right? This gear appears to be good. But what must have happened is the guy who sold this much of the gears. Probably didn't sell the starter, or I didn't see an ad for the starter, and he's missing this gear also, probably because the starter took it out, and he's missing that little flat washer. I'll have to go through my hoarder crap and see if I can't find one. Occasionally what I'll do is somebody will have like the leftovers from an engine ripped down, basically all the nuts and bolts and spacers and clips and locking rings and weird washers and all that strange stuff that's sitting on their workbench. And I don't know if they use a shovel or a dustpan or whatever, but they sweep it all into a box and they'll sell it on eBay for something like $20, 10, 15, $20 with another $5 or $10 to ship it. And I find frequently when I buy those that there's some little piece that I'm dying for that's in there. So for $20 or $25, it really comes in helpful. So at this point, just a couple of different viewer questions. I had a young person write into me that somebody had been wrecking her hoard of quads. She had mostly Honda quads, but somebody was wrecking them for her, and she didn't say what was wrong with them, but she kind of listed them out. So at least she had good stuff, a lot of Honda stuff, and that somebody wrecked them and somebody took them all apart. And what would you do? Well, the first comment is there's 3 steps to the death of one of these things. Step number 1 is breaking it, but that's not what kills these things. Step number 2 is on the way to killing these things. That's when somebody takes it apart like I did and just kind of leaves it like that and leaves the stuff to float around, right? You're on your way to death. You're on the slippery slope. And step number 3 is as these parts get lost, the next thing you know, somebody takes a look at the bike, and this has been open for 40 years, and left outside, so it's rusty, dead, parts are missing, and it gets very expensive very quickly. I think one of these things with the stator inside, typically they're up over $100. You need another one of those gear sets if that's lost, $40-50. Foot peg, $20. So you just start throwing those numbers at them, and if you this thing slides right out, right? The gear shifter lever, if that gets lost, and then once again you're putting $100, $200, $300 into an engine that you're not even sure is alive. Once you break it loose, you're hoping the valves are still good. You're hoping for a lot of things that you may or may not get. And even if you do get it fired up again, that doesn't mean it doesn't have a worn timing chain that it's about to throw, or it doesn't have right-hand drive transmission or clutch problems. And even if you get around all that, then you find out that the rear end has been full of water for the last 100 years, and due to the expansion and contraction, you're cracked back here. So what really kills these things is not that they break. What kills them is when people take them apart and basically lose the parts. Step 2 and 3 is what kills these things. So should you get one of these things and it's dead, first of all, don't take it apart unless you know what you're doing. And if you do take it apart, put it back together again until you come and work on it again. Don't take it apart and leave it apart. Never do that. I don't do that anymore. When I'm done with this video, I'm putting this whole rig back together again. That's one thing. Another thing I took to doing that makes life a lot easier, I started drawing the engine case and put all the bolts right in the holes where I took them out. That makes life a lot easier. I saw Musty One do this on a Ford transmission he worked on. He dropped the case, he dropped the the pan and all the screws were the same, so he didn't have to do anything with that. But when he dropped the valve body, there was all kinds of strange and wild nuts and bolts and long things and clips and bolts with springs attached to them and all kinds of wild stuff. And he used the cardboard technique, and he managed to put it all back together again. Good show. I mean, literally, he must have had 5 to 10 times as much crap in cardboard. And once again, weird stuff. Springs with little screws with washers on them, screws with little inserts and valves and wildness. So you don't want to take that down and then be looking up and, oh, how do I put this back in? And his other problem was there were holes that were threaded with nothing in them. So where does it go? Does it go in the right one, or does it go in the left one? Or does it go in the center one? Or are those meant to be empty, left empty? So the cardboard technique really helps. Putting them back together again completely really, really helps. In my case, this is all my stuff, and I have a decent memory, so I'll know what's wrong with it. But back to the advice to this young person, what you need to do very first of all is, if you're working on a Big Red or TRX 250, get it and put all the parts back on it. No fooling around. All the nuts and bolts, everything. Put it back together again. If you don't know how to put it together again completely, just don't tighten things down and force them and break them. Just get the bolts back in the holes. Get the I've had pretty good luck using zip bags for a lot of the screws. Then once again, once I zip them, I mean, for the ones that are all the same length and all, I typically put it then in a case that seals. That works for me. Once again, I'm not going to have to do that in this case because I'm putting this all back together again. So first of all, get all the parts that go with the bikes they belong. Then if you have a multitude of these things, some of them the same, some of them different, I just make a list of what I have, what year it is, and what's wrong with each one. Obviously, if you have something that's broken in half, or the transmission's gone, or the rear end's blown out of it, or the drive shaft is gone, if you know there's that kind of crap wrong with it, kind of put them on the bottom of the list and write probable parts next to them. You don't have to make that decision right away. If you know that they just need a carburetor cleaned, or the gas tank flushed and cleaned, or the wiring harness bypassed, that's completely different than one that's broken in half, But even the broken stuff, try to get all the parts back on them. Try to have them as intact as possible. I mean, you're going to use them for parts, and that's fine. So take off the parts that you need. Like if for some reason you're bagging this flywheel, take the flywheel, but then put the cover back on. Or if you're taking the flywheel and the cover, fine. Take the cover off the other engine and put it back on with all the screws and all the hardware. You'll, if you go back into that engine, you'll thank yourself. I've had some pretty good luck. Typically, if I am putting something away for a while, I'll put plastic around them and tie it. I leave the bottom open, so if anything does get inside, it'll drain. But I've done that, and that seems to help keep things as dry as possible. Once you come up with that list of what's wrong with your bike, I mean, if you want to contact me, if I have the same bike, I can kind of show you what I would do for whatever you tell me is wrong with it. Whatever hacks or tricks I can share with you, I will. Another comment. This one made me smile. Somebody told me I should get a job and give up hoarding. That one made me smile. I've worked I should do that 35 things that you don't know about Harvey. Most of you guys who regularly watch my channel know this. I've worked for the same company for over 35 years. I'm retired from that company now. Before that, I worked in the family construction business for about 10 years. So I've worked 45, 46 years. I'm not working anymore. I've raised my kids, 2 boys, and they're both doing very well. I put both my kids through college, helped both my kids buy their first cars, helped both my kids get their homes. So my new job is playing with these toys. That's what I do. That's what I want to do. I've put my time and effort in, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it for as long as I could afford to hang on to this place, this house. And then we'll see. I might have to move. Taxes are very high here, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep this place indefinitely. But for now, I'm doing good. I'm getting by. So I'm not rich. You guys aren't rich, or you might not watch this. You have other things and other people who can fix your stuff for you. So we're doing good. We're doing good. And by the way, on days like this, when it's beautiful and blue, where else would you want to be, and what else would you rather be doing than be outside, enjoying the sun and relaxing a little bit? All right, folks, I want to thank you all for watching and commenting and subscribing. Keep the comments coming in. Some of them really do make me smile. And by the way, pizza was invented in 1865. Anyway, folks, once again, thanks for watching, commenting, and subscribing. Keep your feet down, keep your heads up, and please get out there and enjoy all your days, especially big, beautiful days like today. Bye now, folks.